We got some brand new bills for crypto market assets that I think are very good for XRP. In this video, I'm going to explain why these bills are so good for XRP and maybe even more importantly, why they could be very bad for Ethereum and other cryptocurrencies that compete with XRP. I'm going to talk about the bills and the most important things you need to know in this movie. Guys, this is really cool information that I think makes it easy for a lot of people to start using XRP. Your help is very much appreciated as always. Thanks a lot. Thank you to everyone who liked the movies and signed up for the channel. These two easy things help me a lot. Also, if you ever need to buy XRP, check out my favorite strange uphold down in the video's description. So that's it for now. I hope you guys enjoy the material. Right off the bat, I want to talk about something that's not really related to the video, but I think people will still want to hear about it. The price of these tokens. There isn't a normal bear market every 4 years going on right now. This one is a little different. That is, the price has been going down for a few months now, and a lot of people are wondering why this is happening. The truth is that the US stock market has been going downhill lately. When the stock market goes down, it's not a surprise that coins also lose value. So what we really need is a change in the way markets work in general. I think this will be what releases a lot of pressure on the coin market and lets it run like we've all been waiting for. Now, I think the most important thing is about interest rates. The Federal Reserve raised interest rates on purpose to keep assets from going up in value. The Federal Reserve raised interest rates to bring down inflation, even though that wasn't their main goal. Increasing interest rates was meant to get people to spend less, which hurts businesses, slows down the stock market, and eventually stops inflation because no one has money to spend on goods and services that would cause prices to rise. To put an end to the economy, the Federal Reserve raised interest rates all the way to 5%. Of course, that has slowed down growth and the value of many of these assets coming up. I think a lot of people are missing the point that I think we are at the end of this interest rate cycle. The economy will grow quickly, interest rates will drop, and crypto assets will become popular. My reasoning for that isn't that hard to understand, but I think a lot of people still miss it. Why did the Federal Reserve want to get rid of those things? Was rising prices. When the Federal Reserve began raising interest rates, inflation was around 8% to 9%. At this point, inflation is thought to be around 2.2%. In other words, this is exactly what the Federal Reserve wants. Since inflation is right where the Federal Reserve wants it to be at 2%, there is no longer any reason for them to slow down the economy. The Federal Reserve will have to lower interest rates, which will free up the US economy and let asset prices keep going up. There is one more thing I want to talk about before we get to the Bitcoin bills. A lot of people will look at the inflation numbers and ask, Mikhail, how could you believe that all those numbers are BS? You're getting caught up in this system game and other things like that. Just so everyone knows, it's a big game. Isn't the economy just one big game? And this game only has one set of rules that decide what to do. I'm aware that many people don't like the rules or the way the numbers are shown in the game, but everyone plays by these numbers. That way you can keep not believing the numbers and the game. The truth is, though, that everyone else, especially big money, is already a member of the game. That's what moves the prices of these assets. If you believe these numbers are not real, you should still look at them and think, well, it doesn't matter that I believe they are not real. Everyone else is playing by these rules, so they will make decisions based on these rules. Based on their numbers, it looks like inflation is over, which means the Federal Reserve needs to lower interest rates. Since the Federal Reserve bases its choices on inflation numbers, it would be silly not to pay attention to them, even if you think they are all made up. I personally think they are mostly made up. I just wanted to make that clear because people always ask me how I can believe those numbers when I talk about interest rates. There's no need to trust the numbers. You have to understand that these numbers are important, and it doesn't matter what those numbers have to do with the Federal Reserve. The person making the choice is the most important person in this whole process. These numbers, no matter what they mean, that's why I think you should pay attention to them. I believe they will help us make economic decisions in the future. One of the most important things that moves this market is policy. That being said, I'd like to talk about the new coin bills because I think they are very important and support XRP more than I thought possible. The first one was the new meaning of a security. It was very interesting and I almost laughed out loud. This hard to understand test to see what a defense is no longer going to be used. It's going to be easy. It's a security if you sell a token that gives the buyer a right to a share of your business's income or assets. Just because I said there is no Mikkel token doesn't mean you should go out and buy something with a Mikkel token on it. That doesn't exist. But if I gave Mikkel tokens out and said this is nothing at all, The string of numbers and zeros is just something that's moving around on the internet. When you buy this ticket, you get nothing. It's not a safety. If I said, well, every YouTube video I make while holding this token, I will give you the money I make from that YouTube video, that is a safety. This explanation is very clear and easy to understand. I really love this too. It is very easy. If you give someone a token that gives them access to profits from a central group, you're making a security because I could disappear tomorrow. The token I gave you that lets you share the profits from my YouTube account would be worth nothing at all. But if there's no real link to me, and it's just random bits and pieces on the internet, it's not a threat. It's clear that we can judge XRP here. When we buy XRP from Ripple, the company, we don't get a cut of the profits. When we buy an XRP coin, we don't get any shares in Ripple. There is no link whatsoever between my ownership stake in Ripple, their earnings, or the money they made from me buying the XRP token. That makes it very clear that XRP is not a bond. That is very clear from this market infrastructure bill. To be honest, I'm really pleased with that. It scared me that everyone would be left scratching their heads over some 15, 20 or more point test and saying, I have no idea what this means. No, it's very clear and simple. I love it. I don't think that most crypto investments will be safe. And to be honest, I think the ones who do want to be safe, right? Let's say I wanted to make Mikkel token, which would let me give away money from my YouTube account. Back to the watchers, okay? That's fine. It's okay if it's a safety. Now they're giving me the formal paperwork. I need to go issue that as a security. I don't think that will make anyone mad, right? It feels like you own it, which is a comfort. Let me record it. I can do it after I read the notices, right? Oh, I hate that word, security. This whole security thing was never about that, right? It didn't really matter. The trouble was that there were no rules to follow when you were called a security. After the rules were made, it's clear what is security and what isn't and how to use them both. That doesn't mean your idea is doomed. I really like this. Now, I don't think this really changes anything about the other big coins. Based on what I know, I don't think any of the big cryptocurrencies will, except maybe for stable coins. But stable coins might be an exception. That is still something we need to look into. Based on that language, I don't think any of the big cryptocurrencies are doing anything to be seen as a protection. But there is something else that is very interesting. The independence test. You may be wondering, oh no, where does XRP fall on the decentralization test? On the other hand, I believe XRP has a much easier time becoming decentralized in a setting like Ethereum. That's because the bill only talks about owning 20% of the token. You may be thinking to yourself again, oh no, this decentralization test has to screw up Ripple because they have so much XRP. However, that is not the case. Because XRP was built so smartly, the XRP system